And now, from beyond our dimension, this is the JeffMara podcast. Here's Jeff.
My guest is Kathleen Tedder, psychic and remote viewer who has had multiple alien abductions, and even once she returned with a broken rib. Kathleen, thanks for joining me and welcome.
Thank you, Jeff. I really appreciate being invited on your show.
Well, we're really happy to have you. When did this contact start for you?
It's very clear to me. My first memory was age 4, and I was in Alaska. And my parents were both musicians and worked at night. And sometimes I didn't know who the babysitter would be. And this one particular night, there was a terrible storm going on, lightning, thunder, a lot of action. And I was sitting up in the bed, didn't know who to call out to, wasn't sure who was babysitting, kind of confused, but definitely wide awake and scared, very scared. And this glowing, not glowing so much as a bright sort of lady, beautiful lady, appeared at my doorway. And she had long red hair. She had it was like an aura, more of an aura than a glow. Let me use that. I could actually see an aura around her, and without lights on, it's dark, and all it is lightning and thunder going on. And she sort of, I don't know if she floated or walked, but she came over and she sat on the bed beside me and she took my hand. And she said to me, she goes, "What are you afraid of?" And I said, "Well, I'm all alone and I'm scared and that noise, And she says, "Well, look," she says, there were actually no words. This was all telepathically, but I didn't know that at that point. We were reading each other's thoughts, so to speak. And she said, "Well, look at, kind of look." And she did a movement with her hand, and not just a little wave of her hand. And the room lit up very bright, so bright it hurt my eyes. And I had to get adjusted to the light. And in the room were hundreds of different beings. And when I say different beings, there were little people that were adults that were about 2 foot tall that I adored. I instantly locked eyes. It was like hundreds of these people in this tiny room. Now, this is where I later thought maybe she either opened all the dimensions that I could see all the different beings at the same time, or she took my consciousness to another place. That's a possibility I've come upon later in life of that thought. And there were flying monkeys, there were Sasquatch, there were grays, different sizes of grays. There were, you name it, I saw it. And what I saw, and they were all standing together, but again, there are hundreds squeezed into this. What I was thinking of was my bedroom. And they were smiling at me and sending me these love feelings that I can't put into words. And she kind of did another thing with her hand. They went away. And she said, "See, you're never alone." And those words and that experience. And then she kind of, I did run my hands through her hair because she had beautiful long red hair. And I got to look in her eyes, which were bright green eyes and big. I felt bigger than normal humans, but I don't think she looked any different other than those descriptions. She looked like just a beautiful lady, but she had this glow that I could visibly see quite clearly. A white, like white light glow. Beautiful. And then she left, and I was all satisfied and laid back down and went to sleep. But I never forgot it, and I never told anybody about it. It was just, they would have said it was a dream, even though I knew full well what I had experienced was, in my little world, a reality. And at the same age, at age 4, in that same home, we had a split door on the back door in the kitchen. And half of the top half of the door could open out to, and there was no screen. It was just open. And for some reason, I was sitting at the table. I'm 4 and I'm playing at the table. And I look out at the cherry tree that's about 10 feet outside the door. And I saw the softest, most beautiful man bear picking cherries and eating them. To me, man bear. That was my word. And he was eating the cherries, and he looked at me turned and looked at me, and we made eye contact, and I swear he smiled at me, and that touched my heart because I loved animals, and I was instantly out of the chair, opened the door, and was on my way out to give him a hug when my father literally caught me by the seat of the pants, jerked me into the house, and slammed the door on, but I never forgot that look when he smiled at me and the eye contact we made. And he appears in my life a couple more times, believe it or not. That's why I brought that particular thing up about the Sasquatch.
What type of alien do you think the woman was with the long red hair?
I've tried to figure that out. I felt like she was angelic right off the bat of some sort. Of course, what does a 4-year-old know about angels other than the little bit my grandmother would tell me? But they say, a lot of people say that the Pleiadians are very beautiful. So my curiosity is possibly. I really don't know. I just know she had a glow about her that was different than any human I've ever seen before or after. And by her telling me that I was never alone, it kept me being a good girl because, I knew that if I did anything naughty like the other kids, steal a candy bar or something, that I was being watched. I was never alone. So I have kept those words to my heart. And I honestly feel that it might, I don't know, maybe it attracted sentient beings to me. I don't know, or I'm just not alone.
Did you ever see her again?
No. I have not seen her.
Is it possible that you had an NDE before that?
My birth was, I could have, there's a good possibility. This is a true story. I was breech, and my mother was, the doctor wasn't available, and the hospital saw that I was coming out with my shoulder first, and just 2 nurses on duty, didn't know what to do. Believe it or not, they shoved me back in and tied my mother's legs together until the doctor came, which is a big no-no. Okay, big no-no, but they panicked. They didn't know what to do. Okay, so I don't know how that beginning came about, but I was born with a fractured clavicle and, little things. Then my mother's milk poisoned me right off the bat. She drank alcohol and smoked cigarettes, and that may be why, although my sister survived it before me. She's 2 years older. So I don't know. And then at 2 months, I got rheumatic fever. So I had a real rough start. I guess I didn't want to be here.
Maybe they said,
I don't know.
Yeah, who knows?
But after that, again, I've had a lot of different experiences. Maybe those reasons were like near death, and maybe that's opened up a channel for me psychically. I don't know. I don't have those answers just yet.
Well, you are psychic. Have you been that way your entire life?
Yes. I didn't understand about psychic. There were a lot of things that started happening to me. All my life, but I think I should probably next tell you about an abduction that happened at about age 9.
Okay.
Okay. We lived in a little 3-bedroom house that was right near Busch Gardens in Tampa. And my mom had a break-in one night when my sister and I had spent the night with our friends somewhere, and she was alone, and someone broke in, and she had steak for dinner, and they took the steak knife from the kitchen and put it in her bedroom where she was sleeping. So obviously they were in the house and in the room with this weapon, right? And then they went through the undie drawer and for some reason hung undies all over the house. And she woke up the next day and she was so scared and freaked out that she put 3 big bolt locks on front and back door. So we had to go through 4 locks to get in and out. If that's the only way she felt secure. One would be the top bolt up to the roof, and then the side, and then one that literally was drilled down into the floor, the cement floor. So these doors you couldn't just sleepwalk and open. You just couldn't do it. And I had been known to sleepwalk a time or two, but that had nothing to do with it. I'd never done anything like that. But regardless, she had those bolts put there, and I'm 9 years old, and I know this because that's the year we bought the home. And I woke up in the morning, my mother's calling my name, And I sit up and I realize I'm outside under the oak tree, and I have my favorite quilt laid out just like I had made my bed, and I had a pillow. And I was laid down sleeping out under the oak tree. I couldn't think of how the heck did I get outside. Now, the windows back then in Florida were called jalousie windows, and they're about 3 inches apart. And there's no way I could have gotten through there with pillow, blanket, and, without, not sleepwalking. No kind of way. And I sat up and I hear my mother unlocking the door, hollering for me, "What the heck are you doing outside? And, we got to go to school, get going, go to work." And when I sat up and I was realizing what was going on, I felt a feeling of, I feel good. I feel better than I've ever felt in my life. And I have no idea what that's all about because I haven't felt it again since then. But as a little girl at 9 years old, I'm going, why do I feel so good? Is it sleeping out under the stars? And I tried that a few times and no, I never got that same feeling. So I don't know, whatever happened during that particular abduction, which I do have little bits and pieces of memory, and QHHT has definitely opened up a few doors for me to see a little bit more. Yes, they took me and they laid me out so nice and neat out under the oak tree the next morning. So that was my first abduction.
Do you have any memories of being on the craft?
I do. The memories I have, a familiar gray, and I say familiar because I felt like he was an old friend. Now, all the beings that I've encountered since that age 4 seem to have been in my life. It's sort of like they're familiar to me. Like, I think often that maybe that's why the lady let me see them, so that I would not have fear when it comes to these experiences that I've been having the rest of my life, which, when you see ghosts, you get afraid usually, but not me. I talk to them. Anyway, what I remember, I was definitely on a cot or a bed, or I felt like I was in a hospital type situation. And my gray was holding my hand, and behind him, he's about 5 foot. And behind him were 3 little grays that were different. And to me, I felt like they were sort of robotic. I didn't feel any life or consciousness to them that I did with the gray holding my hand. And I also found, which it was, I guess, the beginning of my psychicness, I could leave my body, and I was curious, and I kept leaving my body and looking around the craft. I wanted to know where I was, what was going on, who's here. And I left a couple times, and he asked me to come back. And by the 3rd time he asked me to get back in my body, I thought, he's getting stern, whatever, it must be important, I'll do it. And I got back in my body, and then I don't remember things. But while I was out of my body, I saw my Sasquatch being down by my feet to my left, in front of a panel of some kind of technology that I had no idea. It looked like maybe TVs and knobs and things. And he turned and he smiled and he looked at me, and it was the same one that smiled at me when I was 4. And then a little more to my left from that, there was a mantis lady, and she had a clipboard in her hand. I couldn't get to see her real clear, but it was sort of like she was taking notes, or I don't know what she was doing, but she had something in her hand, like I thought of a notebook years later when I think about it. And then, like I said, he wanted me back in my body for a reason. And so I had flown around a little bit and saw what I could see, and then I obeyed and I got into my body. And he took a rod, I call it a rod, I don't know, it's about 4 inches. And he just kind of went slowly from my head over my body with it. I remember he was slow at my throat with it, a couple of times, did something like this, and again on my ovaries, or that area. Now, I'm 9 years old, okay? Now, the other thing I could see, even laying down consciously, I didn't have to be out of body. I could see 2 children in that room. I could see a little boy about 4 and he was up where my shoulder would be, so he would be up towards where my head was, and I couldn't turn my body real well to see him clear. But a little boy about the age of 4, I clearly could see him just sitting on the floor watching. Then at my feet, down sort of towards where the Sasquatch being was doing his work, was about a 2-year-old little girl. And I could see only the side of her face, but I clearly said, and I think I said it out loud as well as in my head, "That's me." She looked so much like me that I literally said, "That's me." And I'm 9, so I'm not thinking I've had children, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not a child. It's not, I just felt, I don't know. Years later, when you hear the word clone, do you think of that? I don't know. I can't say I know. I just know that this little girl was identical to me at 2 years old. And I could not see her face direct. All I could see was the side, but everything about her, and it was a familiar feeling. Again, that familiarness that happens when I'm with these other beings. Although I didn't, like I said, I couldn't touch her. I was paralyzed. And then when he ran the rod over me, I don't remember anything after that.
Did you happen to look around the ship at all? And if you did, what did it look like?
I looked around the room I was in, and it was a white light that I couldn't quite see where it was coming from. It was just lit up white, not the blinding light we get, but it was very clear. It seems like I was in a circular room, and I could feel there were a lot of other people watching, or other beings in there, but I focused because of my friend, the gray standing holding my hand, and the Bigfoot that was my to me, like my own pet dog, or you know what I mean? To me, he was the love of my life for some reason, was in the room, that I focused mainly on them. And I've been trying real hard to kind of use that circular room and during meditation, going in and looking, like using it like a clock, going 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, trying to see a little more. And I did see more with the mantis being female. And I had asked, who is she, or what, I probably, who is she? And they gave me the words, "the ancient one." Now, I don't know what that meant.
Do you think the mantis being was in charge?
It's very possible.
I recently had another guest that talked about mantis and grays and being with them. And I think the guest also said or felt like the mantis was in charge.
It's very possible. They gave her a lot of respect. Like I said, I could just feel that. But then they tell me she's the ancient one, or is of the ancient ones. I'm not sure how they put it exactly. It's been a long time since I was 9, but that's the memories that I got. And knowing that when I was on craft, I could leave my body, I thought that was great. I could fly around, and I thought that's the first time I'd experienced that. And although later, over years, I've had a few out of body, experiences. So that was my first known abduction.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's move forward to your next one.
The next time, I was 16 years old, so that would be 1967. And my best friend and I rented a little house. It was probably like a farmer's workhouse years ago in the center of some orange groves. And there's quite a few, I must say quite a few acres of these orange groves, and just this little house. And then at the far end was the owner and his house. So we're out there kind of private, very private. And she had a baby young, and she had to go to work. So I babysat the baby sometimes. And anyway, 2 16-year-olds were in this house, and we're making our life quite well. Both had little jobs, So there was a little window about 12 inches barely in the bathroom. And I was on the toilet, believe it or not, a couple experiences on the toilet. And I looked out this little window, and you could just see above the orange groves from the height of this window. And I see this huge, can't quite see what it is, but dark something floating quietly, very quietly floating over, just barely over the top of the orange groves. So I run out the door and I literally was pulling my pants up and screaming, Vicky, come here. There's a UFO, right? And that much I knew. That much I knew. We ran outside. Now, Vicky is like a sister to me. We've known each other since third grade, and we've had 2 or 3 experiences together. And we run outside, and there's a little pond out there, and we're doing the, hey, we're here. Stop. They did. This huge, I'm going to say cigar-shaped, dark, charcoalish color, sort of a flat black. It wasn't shiny or didn't look like a silvery, sort of a darker color. Whatever, I couldn't see the end of it, so I don't know how big, but whatever I could see from the side, it was looking like a cylinder, like a cigar shape coming at us, and it came right up to, I'm going to say, about 100 feet in front of us and stopped. And I noticed at the same time it came closer to us, everything went silent. You know, the crickets, the birds, whatever, silence. I remember that very clear. And it came up to us, and both of us had our mouths open, and we went, what, it's probably thinking, what have we done? You know, I don't know. I didn't feel fear. I don't know. Vicky doesn't have a lot of memories. She's still my dear friend. She doesn't have a lot of memories, so I don't know what exactly she does remember. I've asked her to write it for me a couple times, but she's a busy girl. Anyway, so it came up to us, and it had a glass viewing wall room. The whole thing looked glass at the beginning, at the front, and I could see in clear. I mean, they're 100 feet above us, and just over the top of the orange grove trees, so they're not real far up. If you follow me, I mean, that's pretty darn close. And I see a bunch of people, and I could see other beings moving about. I mean, it looked like hundreds of beings, busy beings moving about. And I somehow felt like it was a tour ship, like all the beings in the universe were on a tour or something. I don't know. I just had this real flash of it was a tour bus, a huge, humongous tour craft.
Like
Instantly,
like a space cruise ship.
That was my first thought, because I could just, as fast as I'm looking, I'm seeing different everythings and every being. In the center was a gentleman that I don't know if he was a captain, a leader, a pilot. I don't know, but he had a glow, again, an aura of such beauty that my first thoughts, and I made eye contact with him. I made direct eye contact with him. My first thought was, Jesus. I just met Jesus. And that's how I felt in my heart, truly. And then my second thought was purity. Now, what that means to this day, I just got purity and Jesus. Like I must have looked at an angel. I don't know. But he was in all white. He had white hair, long hair. I can't gauge his age. I just can't. But just a beautiful man. Seemed pretty tall. Could have been, after doing much research in many years, maybe a tall white. I'm not sure. I don't know for sure. But my first thought was Jesus, and my second thought was purity. And then I don't remember anything else, and neither does my friend Vicky. I don't know what she saw. You know, we've never had we didn't talk about it. The funny thing is, a lot of my experiences, we just never talked about it. I kept them to myself. We just never did. Anyway, that's all I remember personally, except that it was huge, long, and there were like portals or windows along the side I could see. And then, since we don't remember anything else, we woke up the next morning, both of us, with the most horrible headaches either one of us could ever remember. Not like a hangover either. It was very painful, both sides of the brain. Oh, a memory that was always clear to me, that was not induced by hypnosis, things I actually saw consciously while I was on craft, that I had to meditate to get to some of these things. But there was 2 doors at the feet, and again, I'm on a bed, and I knew Vicky was with me somewhere on craft, but in another room. And I could see the two doors, and against the doors to the right were three men in human-looking men in military uniform. And I grew up near MacDill Air Force Base and used to go to the air shows, and I knew that those were our military uniforms. So I felt, hey, how cool! Our military gets to ride in this tour bus or tour craft. And there's three men, like I said, and they were just standing with their arms folded looking. And that was beside one door. On the second side, on the other side of the door were three beings that were military as well, but in a uniform I didn't recognize. And they were only about 5 foot, maybe 5'5". It was a woman and two men. And somehow I instantly could hear them talking telepathically to each other. And they knew I was hearing them. Somehow they knew that I was listening to their conversation. So I knew then that they were not human, because they had this telepathy gift, which I didn't even know the name of telepathy yet. I just knew I could hear their thoughts clearly, and I knew that they could hear me hearing them. So those are conscious memories. And above me, I looked up, and above me was like like glass viewing, like they do for surgical medical people. When you're doing a surgery down below, they have viewing rooms. That was above me, far up above, and I mean far up above. But I could feel that there were a lot of people looking down. I just didn't see them. And so that's mostly what I remember consciously of being on the craft.
I know this sounds terrible, but it almost seems like you were a zoo animal or something.
I don't know that they ever hurt me. I mean, I don't know, because I don't have that exact memory. When they put you out good. Now this was daylight. Now this was I'm gonna say 6 or 7 in the PM, and I'm believing it was fall. I don't know why, but I keep feeling like it was in the fall. Now when it went over our place, like I said, it was daylight. I'm gonna guess, say about 7, and it left and went in front of the University of South Florida's it wasn't brand new, but it was a planetarium that had been built. I got blessed to go to the opening when I was a young girl, when they first opened it. Anyway, 3 professors actually saw it. It came right in front of them in the planetarium, which was a few miles from where we lived. And it did the same thing, very slow. It just kind of went right in front of them, and they drew pictures of it as best they could, and it was published in the newspaper the next day. So when my girlfriend went to work, and I think her mom had the baby, so I ran down to the store and got a newspaper. And sure enough, they had the drawing in there, and the 3 professors admitted that that's what they described. And I'm pretty sure they said it was around 10 p.m. or 10 something, around 10, which it was not. It was daylight when I was there. So that's approximately a 3-hour missing time for me, which happened at a couple other times in my life at right around 3 hours. So anyway. And later on, I met one of those professors' daughters, and she knew the story very well. And I've lost track of her since. But so I got verification that one of the professors was my friend's father.
I wonder if the old newspaper article can be found.
I tried to look online, but I'm not very technical. I don't know. There were 2 newspapers back in those days, the Tampa Tribune and the Times. I believe it was just called the Times. Might be Tampa Times. I'm not sure. And I believe the Tribune might have went out of business, but I'm sure they have to have a library, I would think. But for some reason, I'm thinking it was the Times. I'm just not sure. But one of the 2 newspapers had that. And I like I said, I grabbed that newspaper and I went home and I had verification of what I saw. And the 3 professors described it as big as 3 football fields in length. So that's why I guess I couldn't see all of it.
Maybe that article's stored on a microfiche somewhere.
Possibly. I just don't know how to go about getting it or retrieving it, but it was there. It was in the paper. I don't believe it was on the front page. I think I had to look for it, but it was a good article. It was a good sized little article with that drawing.
Well, let's move forward to the abduction where you had a broken rib.
I was in Oregon in my 60s. I'm 74 now, so this was, I don't remember. I was in my 60s, and I was on a farm and on probably 100 acres in a valley, but it was up in surrounded by mountains in Oregon. I'm not going to name the exact location, but anyway, I'm on a farm and I'm in an RV, and I have a boyfriend sleeping with me beside me at the time, and I have that dream where you're falling. That everybody talks about you're falling, and then just before you hit, you wake up. If you know what I mean. Well, I had that dream and I was falling, but I hit. And when I hit, it jarred me awake. It was hard. It was rough. And I opened my eyes and I sat up. And when I sat up, I couldn't hardly breathe. I had to gasp for air. I had pain. Well, I let it go for a few hours, thinking I must have sprained something on the farm. And then by the next day, I had to go in and get x-rays. And I had a mysterious, and they put it sort of as in my medical records as a very odd situation of having this broken rib, sleeping. And so for 4 to 6 weeks, I was very angry. I didn't tell anybody, but I was angry with them. I felt like this is the first time they hurt me. And I was mad, and I didn't want to carry that madness. I didn't want to hold any dark, I just didn't want that energy of being mad. So when I was finished with the pain, about a month or so after, I'm out on the farm by myself with the animals, and I hear in my head loud and clear, it was as if 1,000 voices at once, but all in unity, said in my head, "We're sorry," just like that. And I heard them loud and clear, and my eyes got big, and and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, and they said, "We were hit with an EMP." Now, I didn't know what an EMP was. I didn't understand. I just know that they apologized, and that undid that burden of me being angry with them. And I did not want that anger because they'd never hurt me before. Only blessings in my world have happened for me. So they somehow hive communicate because, like I said, it was like 1,000 voices but one, all together, and they telepathically apologized. And I guess when they were returning me, something hit them. I don't know if our government or if they got caught. I don't know. Maybe the earth sends out magnetic waves. I don't understand. But they told me they were hit with an EMP and they were sorry. So that started me on a new journey. It started me, first of all, opening up and telling the truth about these experiences. It started me on my spiritual journey because I thought I might need to know how to protect myself or my aura or my consciousness. I might need to learn some skills, shaman skills, some kind of skills to be able to protect myself. Maybe, I don't know. It opened the door for my spiritual path. And I started studying, and boy, did I study, and I meditated, and I did some yoga faithfully, and I did, all the right things working on my spiritual path. And since then, that was 2016, I have had many, many, many more things happen that make sense to me, that have happened over my life that at the time didn't make any sense to me. But I've been putting those puzzle pieces together more and more.
Are you still in contact with them today?
As a matter of fact, I can. I do get telepathic messages every so often. On this land I'm house sitting on 5 acres. A year ago, I sat here for a couple of weeks or so, and I went outside and I saw 2 craft. And I said to them, I watched them 3 nights in a row, and I watched them, a larger one and a small one. And I went out and I got messages. You're protected. It was sort of like I felt like I've kind of felt this way in a lot of ways and a lot of times, that I feel like they're there and I'm protected somehow, or they're watching. I don't know why, but I feel protected from them. So the 3rd night I went out, I brought my phone and I didn't turn any lights on. And I said, "Can you come closer?" I said, I'd like to see you closer. And I have about a 15-second or so video of them where they came right up in front of me. sort of a golden orb, little silver golden, and it has life. I can't explain it, but so I got a video of them. Yes, I have called them in on CE5s quite a few times.
Is there somewhere where we can see that video? Like, did you post it online?
I posted it. I did. I posted it on my Facebook group, Merlin, which is like Merlin with a G for girl, which is a name that a friend gave me, who did a website for me in the early, 2010, maybe. I had a psychic site. It was on a web page called kundalinitantra.com. And I had my own site, Merlin, that he named. And he said it was the female Welsh spelling for Merlin. And it meant that I was a seer. And what I did with that site, I never charged any money. I didn't monetize it or anything. But what I did with that site for a little while was read people's spiritual guides, who's around them, what ancestors, things like that. And I was pretty successful for a little bit, but I was also caring for my mother, who had cancer, and she had 3 different cancers and lived 15 years, thank God. But I was caring for her, so I couldn't really focus as well as I had intended with the website. So I let it go after a little while. But yeah, Merlin is where that name came from this lovely young man that he had been in Vietnam. He was a pastor. He was a Kundalini master. He was a lot of things, among, lots of things. Mostly importantly, he was a Vietnam veteran, friend of mine at that time. Okay. Like I said, I went out after the 3rd night of seeing the 2 crafts and pretty much in the same direction. And I could just telepathically, I just say hello and I love you. I do this quite a bit without even thinking. Out comes I love you. I do it with birds. I do it with animals. I do it with the craft. And after the 3rd night, I went out. I thought, I'm going to take a picture and I'm going to ask them to come closer. And when they did, I was in such shock. I just stood there and I took a couple pictures that weren't so good, but then I took this video and I just stayed frozen as long as I could. And then I thought, thank you. I appreciate you. I love you. And I came in the house and didn't bother to even look at it till the next day.
All
I
right.
didn't even realize what I got until the next day.
Now, do you think this is a craft or a being?
I think it's a being.
Okay.
Now, when I say being, I don't mean ghost. I don't mean spirit from a living form. I think some orbs, maybe all, I don't know. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a professional. I just feel that every orb I have seen and interacted with like this has been in itself a conscious being.
Okay. Let me play it.
There was also a smaller one. I don't know if you can see it real well. It makes its appearance a little bit in this video, just a little light, which was the second one. But the main big one is the one that came forward to me.
How far away from you was it, and how big would you say it was?
I could not tell because it was so dark out. You can see it's no moon, no light. It was very dark out. So I couldn't quite tell, but it had to have been, it came over there's huge oak trees where I'm at, and it came right up over the oak tree. So 300 or 400 feet, maybe 500 feet away from me. And it just kind of stayed long enough for me to take the little video. And then, like I said, I thanked it. I thanked the good Lord, and I told it I loved it, and turned off the video, came in the house. Didn't even say goodbye.
Would you say it was the size of a basketball or a
I
car?
would say bigger than a basketball. I would say, how do I get? I'd
Like a
say it was about 20 feet around.
Wow, it's big.
It actually was. But it didn't appear on my phone, and I didn't think to enlarge my phone. I wasn't I wasn't being conscious. I was just surprised that I asked it and it came, which, that in itself was such a blessing for me.
Okay.
So I get in my car after this is over. I'm guessing 11, maybe 11:30, something like that. And I get in my car and I have a sunroof that I always keep open. I just love to keep the sunroof open. And I look up and I see a craft, big as life, just over me. And that particular craft stayed with me, over me, the entire 50 minutes. And I didn't stop because I'm on the interstate. I didn't stop and try to take a picture or anything, but it stayed with me right up until I got to these apartments. And when I got to the apartments, I started to get out. I was tired and I grabbed my stuff and I started to run into the apartment. And they said, "Get your phone." So I got my phone, I turned around, and that's what they gave me.
All right, let's watch it. Would you say those are multiple little crafts or one big one?
Yeah, I believe it's smaller crafts. Sometimes I've seen crafts kind of get back together, like in the turn into one. So I don't know if it was the one. It was only one that I could see following me, staying above me, not following, but staying above me. But when I got back, like I said, I was just going to grab my stuff and go in the house and tell them thank you, good night, and I'm tired. But this is what they pretty much said: get your phone, and I did, and started taking pictures, and that's that. I've had multitudes of experiences with either crafts or orbs.
You're a psychic as well as you have communication with the ETs.
Correct.
Through your ability or through communication, do you have any information about what's coming for humanity in the near future?
I've been told if we can hang on for 4 or 5 more years that we will have I was told by 2027 that we would be in almost full disclosure, but I don't know. I'm so doubtful at what's going on with Congress and whatever, but I don't pay attention to the politics. I believe definitely that ET is going to be able to walk among us and be our friends, and we are going to communicate and learn from them and with them. But I do think we still have a little bit of a rough road to go, because most people that are in fear are going to pull out a gun and shoot them. And they know this, they know we're not ready yet. So they're communicating through people like myself. I'm not special. There's a lot of people that are getting these same communications. And I think that we will be the ones that'll help integrate humanity with ET and elementals and these other beings that are actually around us all the time.
When you say you see elementals, is that like fairies and stuff?
Yes, 2017, early 2017, this gentleman and we were on an excursion in the redwood forest. And I had not had telepathy with an elemental or a fairy before. I've had a little telepathy, but I didn't realize, I just didn't realize that's what it was exactly yet. So I'm out in the redwood forest. I meditate, I pray, I thank the Lord for the beauty around me and all those things. And all of a sudden, this little, I won't say orb because it was a moving something, and it was moving. It's so fast, I could not get a clear vision, but it was very colorful and beautiful. And it telepathically, I then realized was a fairy. The only thing I could put my thoughts to is that it has to be a fairy. And she told me that they want to communicate with humans again, but they don't want to be put under glass and then, cut up, taken from their family. They don't want to be harmed. And so they will only show themselves to a few, but they are definitely going to start showing themselves again. And she said to me, I wish you could help teach telepathy. Well, I don't know how to do that other than shut up and pay attention to what's in your head. Just shut up and listen, I should say. Just shut up and listen. And but they told me that. And now after that little brief visit with the little fairy, I had a tree speak to me. I'd never had that experience before. Again, it was a different day, and it wasn't the redwoods. It was out in the Sierras, but we were way out on BLM land where we would go where people couldn't hardly get to because we felt like virgin land had something to offer and we wanted to explore. And we would do it every weekend, just about. So we're out on some virgin land, and I'm surrounded by trees and rocks and beauty. And I hear this tree say, "I have a surprise for you." And I look at this tree, and I walked over to the tree, and I looked around and I saw two rocks, two round white rocks. I picked one up and I looked, and it was just a rock, and I put it back down. And then now remember, I'm out on land that no child or nobody had camped on, or we couldn't see any evidence of any humans where we were. So I pick up the other rock and I turn it over, and there is a child's painting. To me, it looks like a child's painting of a rose. And I'm just in shock. I mean, what a surprise, I mean, I'm in the middle of nowhere land. How did this tree tell me that there was a rose painted on this rock? So I took a picture of the rock, and then I took a picture of the tree, and I thanked them both, and I thanked the good Lord, and I put the rock right back where I found it. And that was, the fairy somehow opened up my telepathy. Let's just go there, to the point where I started hearing plants, trees. A bee got my attention and talked to me telepathically and said they desperately needed sugar water. So I had to run in the house and make sugar water for a bee. I mean, I telepathy with a lot of different things opened up at that point. That was 2017.
When you first started having telepathy, did you ever doubt it or think, am I going crazy?
No, I knew the difference between my thoughts, and I know what's real. And it's not like they put words in your head. It's more like images. So you kind of know that you're not hearing voices. It's not like schizophrenia. Definitely not like that. You get these images, and you sort of sometimes have to wait a little while and process what you've experienced or what the messages mean, so to speak.
After watching this podcast, people may want to reach out to you and ask you questions. If you're open to that, how should they contact you?
I'm mostly on Facebook. I don't really have a web page or anything. I am on Facebook. I have my regular Facebook page, and I have the Merlin group, Facebook group, Merlin, like I said, /Merlin. And I have a third group page that's not very popular yet, called The Plant Beings. And I talk about how the plant beings can telepathically speak with you and my experiences there. So there's 3 ways on Facebook that you can reach to me, or Messenger. I'm always on Messenger checking things.
Before we finish up, can you leave us with a last positive message?
The positive message I get is that it's happening. It's going to happen. The turnaround from the darkness and all this slavery we've been under, and control, it is slowly turning around. It is going to turn around. They are going to be working with us and helping us in the future. And the main thing is, all of the beings I've ever experienced do not want to cause fear. As a matter of fact, when we're screaming, when they're during an abduction, the screaming, whether it be internal or visibly out externally, it hurts their heads terribly. Any kind of dark fear hurts their heads. So they don't want us to be in fear. So they want us to understand, that we are going to be amongst family, that they're here. They've always been here, and they're going to continue to be here, but they are coming and stepping up more and more in our very near future. I suspect in the next 2 years.
Kathleen, thank you for your message, and thank you for being my guest.
Thank you, Jeff. I really appreciate you.
And I appreciate
I'm
you.
hoping my words touch people's hearts, and I'm open to any questions anytime. And I'll give my honest best answers. And if I don't have an answer, I'll let you know that too. But sometimes I can ask, and then they'll give me an answer. So we'll do our best. So.
Thank you. Thanks for watching the JeffMara podcast. I really appreciate you. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. And if you do, there are loyalty badges and other perks depending on your level of membership. All you need to do is click the join button underneath the video to find out more. Thank you for your support.